¿Qué tal, mis queridos amigos de The Wine Club? Hoy vamos a tener una charla súper interesante. Viene con nosotros una querida amiga, Jancis Robinson. Yo le llamo la Yoda del vino porque para mí eso es. Estoy súper nervioso por tenerla enfrente de mí y platicar acerca de su carrera, del vino, de todos los libros que ha escrito. Así es que, bueno, vamos a seguir aprendiendo de este maravilloso mundo del vino.
I'm so sorry. I was working.
Don't worry.
I do. What a wonderful backdrop.
Thank you. This is Playa del Carmen in Mexico. Last time that I see you in Belgium, we were suffering with the winter, but now here is the sunshine. I mean,
I know. Well, I just see if I can see there's been a most beautiful sunset here in London. Lots of red, but I'm sure you have beautiful sunsets there. So, and we have snow, so you won't want to see that.
Yeah. So in Mexico, we don't have the snow, but nowadays some parts are suffering for the climate, but not like in Europe for sure. So how are you, my friend? Nice to have you.
Very, very busy actually, which hence my extreme rudeness at being late for you, and I'm very, very sorry.
Don't worry.
I just, my job is to write. Well, we publish 2 articles every day on jancisrobinson.com, and that's a lot of work because I don't write them all, but I'm in charge. And then I write an article every week for the Financial Times, and we're updating the Oxford Companion, and yes, there's lots.
This one, I have the other edition, but one
day too old.
Yeah, it's too old. I know. In Mexico, shows the new one.
This is the one you need.
As soon as I go to Europe, I will try to find it. So, thank you for your time. I know that you're a very busy girl and always doing things. And thank you, because probably most of the people that are here in this business and in this profession is because of you or some other writers. And for me, you are like, to be respectful, you're like the Yoda of the wine. You know what I mean? And please, before we start with the interview, let us know, how did you start in this business? I mean, when, how, and how did you become as famous as you are now?
Well, if I'm famous, it's because I work hard, I think. I wasn't brought up with wine, but when I got to university at Oxford, wine was available. And like a lot of people, I think, who end up devoting their lives to wine, there's one special bottle that lights the flame and you just go, that is so good and so much better than plonk, than ordinary wine. And this was a red Burgundy, in 1959, Chambol Musigny Les Amoureuses.
Wow.
And it was gorgeous. And I think I sensed that it offered not just a huge amount of sensual pleasure, which was fantastic and unbeaten, and I love eating and drinking, so that was tick, but also that there was a lot of intellectual stimulation hidden in the glass, that there was history and geography and all sorts of other things, science. And so I wouldn't say but this was so long ago, so much, when none of you were born, that at that stage in England, wine and food had no social status at all. If I'd said to my friends, I'm going to go and be a wine writer, they would say, what a waste of an education. That's not a noble thing to do. So I spent 3 years working in the travel business and 1 year living in France, but still always knowing that when I well, because I was surrounded by French people for whom eating and drinking is what life is all about, I had the courage to be sure that when I got back to London, I would find a job in either wine or food. And I got a job as assistant editor on a wine trade magazine. And in fact, I was filling the shoes of someone who left to become editor of a new magazine in the UK called Decanter. And it just all grew from there.
When was that?
What was that? When was that?
When was it?
When I started on the wine trade magazine on the 1st of December 1975. Ooh,
Wow.
very, very, very long time ago.
I was born in 77, so
I know. I don't want to know these things.
yeah. No, but it's okay because since that time you were drinking wine. You drink wine since all my life. That's amazing.
Yes, that's true.
I agree with you. One of the reasons that I'm here in this business is because the passion that you feel, I can feel it as well. The passion to share the knowledge. No?
I'll tell you one, if we're talking about ages and all that, and one thing, I tell you, there are two very nice things about getting older. One is that you know so many people that you can put two people together that will benefit those two people, and then you just leave. It's nothing, all you've done is make the introduction, and it's something that is just hugely satisfying. And the other thing is that you're early in the queue for your COVID vaccination.
Yeah. Tell me about it. I mean, in Mexico, the situation, it's horrible, but yeah. Anyway, we're still alive. I always say we have one day because tomorrow doesn't exist, but we have today. So today will be an amazing day.
Okay, good. And I'll tell you another thing, that the only time in my 45 nearly years of writing about wine when I thought I knew everything was when I just finished my Wine and Spirit Education Trust diploma. And the WSET, the wine courses, yeah. And I came top in my year of the diploma. And I thought, right, that's it. I know everything there is to know about wine now. And of course, since then, there's a nice graphic, isn't there? They say, if you know this much, the perimeter with your ignorance is just that size. And if you know this much, the perimeter with your ignorance is that much bigger. So the more you learn, the more you know you don't know.
Yeah, and I agree with you.
And it's, with wine, it's so important to stay humble and curious, and not to be ashamed of asking questions and saying, I never knew that, or can you explain that again? I think when I go to a restaurant, I'm probably the customer who asks the most questions, because I suppose I'm confident enough. I'm not worried that the sommelier is going to think badly of me. I know the somm should know all of their wines. And so I can learn from them,
Yeah, my opinion, I always say that we can learn from anyone. So even if it's not a famous, some of my best experiences in the wine were with humble people.
Yes. And often people who don't have much experience tasting wine have very vivid impressions and often come up with better words, because we all are taught the same words in the same way. And it's great if you can suddenly, I remember tasting some cheap sparkling wine with some journalists, not wine journalists. And one of them said, it tastes just like fermented bubble gum. And that was a really good description, which I wouldn't have thought of.
Yeah, that the simple descriptions sometimes are the best ones. So,
Mm.
and let me ask you something. When you start in this business as a writer, what was your motivation and how was the process of create the first book?
Somebody wrote an article about me in one of our national newspapers, because actually it wasn't that unusual to have a woman writing about wine, but he thought it would be a nice story about a young blonde woman writing about wine who looked a bit hippie. And a publisher read that article, approached me. This was just after I'd finished the diploma. Approached me and said, I've been looking for someone to write a guide to wine for beginners, and you are probably the right person. So I wrote a synopsis, and then he said, oh, I'm sorry, but my bosses are Christian Scientists and they don't want to publish a book about wine. Wow. And I hate waste. I think if I've done something, I'm not just going to throw it away. So oops, you've disappeared. Let's have a look.
I disappeared?
Yeah, no, it's all right. You're back again. So I showed the synopsis to a friend of mine who was in publishing. She showed it to an associate of hers who was just starting out as a literary agent, who sells books to publishers. And he ended up selling my book back to my friend, who, but actually he has been my literary agent for all my life, and is a very good literary agent and has guided me to a certain extent. But it's basically, I'm not very good at guiding myself. I respond to external stimulus. So if someone comes to me and says, I want you to write a book, then I'll probably do it if it sounds like a worthwhile. But I very, very rarely sat down and said, okay, I want to write a book, and then go and sell it to somebody.
Yeah, maybe I should ask you to write a book about Mexican wines and Mexican gastronomy.
Well, funnily enough, it's a complete coincidence, but somebody she's English but lives in France, contacted me today to say that she was coming to Mexico at the end of this month, I think. Really? Lucky thing being allowed to travel, because we're not allowed to travel outside our front doors practically. And she said, and would you be interested in an article about the new developments in Mexico? And of course I said yes.
Okay.
So there will be a nice up-to-date article about what's happening on the Mexican wine scene on jancisrobinson.com before too long.
Besides we have here sommeliers, also we have wine producers in Ensenada that are here in this meeting. And also we have different people from different countries like Brazil, Dominican Republic, Chile, etc.
Hi. Hello.
Yeah. So maybe, yeah, please let me know if you come to Mexico, and I really be honored to invite you to visit the wineries that I like. I think that we are doing an amazing job.
In Uruguay.
Yeah, and for sure.
Honestly, though, travel is just such a distant dream at the moment. Last year, I had to cancel 14 trips.
Yeah. Don't tell me about it. I do the same thing. I mean, last year. Anyway, so what was your biggest challenge in the industry? I mean, at that time, there was not too many women, as you mentioned.
Well, there were quite a lot. And in fact, in the 1980s, because I then went on to be the wine correspondent of the Sunday Times, which is quite a big paper in the UK. And at one stage, 3 or 4 of the most important newspapers in the UK in the 1980s had female wine correspondents. And so people would write articles about us and things. So honestly, I couldn't say that I suffered any discrimination because of being a woman. Not that I noticed. I mean, probably people might have been saying something behind my back, but I wasn't aware of it. And I was sometimes, if say a visiting wine producer came to London, I would be sat next to, it was usually him, I would be sat next to him out of courtesy, and I'd get the story because I was sitting next to him. And, you know, my male rival wine writer would be at the other end of the table. So I can't honestly claim that was a big challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just been hard work and keeping my ears and eyes open and trying to learn. I'll tell you one big challenge which occurs to me, one which sort of took place in the early years of this century, actually. So I'd already been writing about wine for a long time. But the big difference came with the internet and social media. Because in the past, if you were a wine writer with a reputation, you wrote an article in a newspaper or you wrote books, and you never got any feedback from readers, and nobody ever argued with you or criticized you. And then, but with the advent of online, suddenly there are these comment sections and there's Twitter, and, you know, people can, if they want, they can be quite rude about so-called experts. So that was a big leap, a new world where to keep up, you had to run, you know, it wasn't anymore the case that you handed down your thoughts on tablets of stone and no one could argue or criticize. So is that something new to live with?
Yeah, because I mean, in my opinion, sometimes it's not really easy like this for women. You know, I always say that when you give a woman love, education, and wine, obviously, you empower her. So that's why, you know,
well, I mean, I am aware it's all very well me saying, oh, I haven't had any problems of being a woman, but I know an awful lot of women in wine who have problems and are not accepted equally. And as you probably read about the terrible things that have happened in the court of the master sommeliers and so forth. And I'm very lucky. I haven't experienced that, but I feel very, very sorry for women making their way, particularly in the wine trade, you know, where I think it's a lot more difficult. I've never been in the trade. I'm just a parasite on the wine trade. I sit on the edge and I write about it. So I think it's up to people like you to welcome women as equals and treat them with respect. And I hope you do.
Respect is the key. You know what I'm creating in March 8th? I'm going to do an event with some famous people from different industries, obviously wine industry, that I call it Wine, Woman in Wine, to honor the women in the world. So will have people like from wineries like Laura Catena from Argentina. I will have Gaia from Angelo Gaia. I will have Catherine Folliard from Alsace, Domaine Weinbach. And also, and if you have time, it will be a pleasure to invite you to be here, part of this panel, to share with the women, you know, because sometimes people in different parts of the world, they don't know how to react in the situations like, as you mentioned, Court of Master Sommelier things. And when they see someone like you to share the career, the trajectory, they feel like, you know, empowered. And that's why I'm creating this. It's my first year. So if you have time, please check it out.
I'm sure you will be in touch with me about it, Mark.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. So let's talk about the 20th anniversary thing, because 20, it's almost the age of my boy that it's here next to me. So tell us about it. How do you feel?
Oh, I'm proud. I'm very proud. My children call jancisrobinson.com my fourth child. And I'm amazed that at the success, really. It just started in a very, very modest way of, again, somebody saying, you ought to have a website. And then I I enjoyed it so much. If you write for a newspaper, or you write books, or you do television programs, all of which I've done, you have to, it's slow, you have to work with other people, you can't sort of necessarily say exactly what you want. And of course, on a website, you can write something immediately and it's published. And you get feedback, and you can learn from your readers. So it was a very, very nice experience. But after the first year, when it was all free, I realized I was enjoying it so much and spending so much time on it that I couldn't afford to carry on just as a charity. And so I decided to experiment and see, and I was determined not to take ads or sponsorship because I wanted to be completely independent. So I just experimented with having a paywall, having a membership, members only part of it for the things like the tasting notes and whatever. And it was a huge success, and immediate success. By mistake, it was live for 30 minutes before it was meant to be live. And in the 30 minutes, we got 2 memberships, one of which was from Brazil, from Rodrigo Mainardi, who is still a member. So that's very, very nice. And it's just grown. We've got members in 80 plus countries. And it's a community, it's lovely that, people who love wine tend to quite like each other.
I'm pretty sure that you always have different challenges in your mind. I mean, because you have to be updated, right? So you need to travel, you need to taste, you need to do, you need to be in the business.
Well, of course, the pandemic has thrown up a completely, for all of us, many, many challenges. And in what we used to call normal life, I would travel around and go to wine regions and go to a lot of professional wine tastings, because London is a fabulous center for wine, the wine trade. And you could actually go to perhaps 4 different professional wine tastings a day when in the sort of peak of the season. So it was a great place to learn about wine, to taste wine. And so now, instead of me going to the wine comes to me. And courier services have been very, very busy bringing wine to me. Unfortunately, 4 years ago, we moved from our family house to a flat on the 14th floor. So we're very, very dependent on our lift and our trolleys.
Very nice. So I'm pretty sure when you were starting in this business, probably you have, like you, for us, kind of a mentor, or not mentor, but someone that you admire, no?
Yes, I think there are probably 2 people, both male. My predecessor at the Financial Times, it's called Edmund Penning Rousel, and he was a great Bordeaux expert, had a wonderful cellar, and he looked like the most cliche sort of right-wing English gentleman. He would wear 3-piece tweed suits and a hat, Homburg, and gloves and a walking stick. And he was a member of one of these gentlemen's clubs and so forth. And yet, right up to when he died, he had a subscription to Marxism Today. So he was quite an unusual mixture of people. And he was a big union organizer and so forth. And he was the one who really taught me never be ashamed of asking questions. He always was asking questions. So I appreciate, and he was very, very punctilious about, he was the chairman of a buying group called the Wine Society, but he would never write about the Wine Society. So, he taught me to have your hands very, very clean. And then in terms of actual writing and wordcraft, my colleague on the World Atlas of Wine, Hugh Johnson, is a fabulous writer. And so I think those 2 probably shaped me quite a bit.
You know, one of my first books, I don't have it here, but was the Atlas of Hugh Johnson and yourself. And it was, I mean, probably many people here, they have the same. So I will,
This is the
yeah,
latest
yeah.
one. I'm showing you all my wares.
This,
But in America, it's got a red jacket because American publishers think that all wine books have to have red covers.
okay.
Don't know why.
Yeah, okay, got it. Yeah, I also want to invite him, Mr. Hugh Jones, because I really believe that he's one of the top guys in this industry for sure.
Yeah.
So, and during this career, probably you visit too many wineries, many regions. Is there any region that you haven't visited yet?
Oh, yes. Well, I've only been to Uruguay once, I'm afraid, but my colleague Julia Harding has been 2 or 3 times. And I've been to Brazil once, but not to the wine regions.
Okay.
I'm thinking of places that are closest to you. I've got a friend who's got a wine making contract in Bolivia and sends back the most amazing pictures.
Wow.
He got stranded there actually in the pandemic. But I haven't been to Bolivia. I haven't been to the wine regions of Peru. So I'm pretty ignorant about South America, really. Obviously, I've been to in fact, my last trip was a year ago, almost exactly. It was exactly Argentina and then California. I have to keep those memories going, keep me going.
Okay, we need to do something about it. Here we have people from Brazil, Uruguay, Alejandra. Ahí tenemos que hacer algo para que we are practicing our Spanish.
Tenemos que hablar con Adri a ver si podemos hacer algo.
Exactamente. No, very good. So, yeah, because the wine world, it's very huge world.
Yeah, and it's expanding.
Yeah.
You know, so now we have wine made in Denmark, Sweden, even Norway.
Yeah. Nowadays we're suffering. We have different challenges, and one of them for me it's the warming climate. Some people say that it's going to be slow, but some people say that it's happening quickly. What's your opinion about that?
I don't see it slowing at all. I mean, yes, we're getting frosts and hail and snow, but the summers just seem to be getting hotter and hotter, and the harvests getting earlier and earlier. And so the vine is moving towards the poles, the North and the South Pole. But unfortunately, there aren't many areas in the Southern Hemisphere that can still be planted. Chile, the very south of Chile and Argentina are the only really. Australia and New Zealand have gone as far south as they can.
Yeah. So what's your prediction for the future in the world?
South Africa. Sorry. Yeah.
What's your prediction? Yeah, I mean, because I noticed that Bordeaux are planting some different grapes.
Yeah.
In Spain, for example, Miguel Torres is trying in another regions that usually they don't plant there. So
yes.
What's your prediction?
Well, that's I'm sure going to continue, and people. I think that there are 2 forces that are weakening the old appellation controle system, and one is climate change, and you just have to look at Burgundy, and some of the appellations that people used to think were second rate because they couldn't ripen the grapes every year are actually producing better wines or more subtle wines than some of the classic regions, which are actually some years too hot and losing the subtle little elements of the wine. And the other reason for weakening the controlled appellation system is that everyone wants to experiment so much more. They don't want to have these rules where they've got to plant only these varieties, and they want to make orange wines and natural wines, and those are wines which the tasting panels of the controlled appellation refuse because they're not typical. So more and more you see interesting wines sold without an appellation, don't you?
Yes, let me tell you something. 2 days ago, I was here with Eddie Foller from Domain Weinbach, and we were talking about the Syrah that they are planting in Alsace.
Yeah,
Can you imagine that?
amazing, isn't it? Yeah, I know. And Germany as well, of course, has got some very nice Syrah now. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to open our minds. I mean, the wine is changing. The typicity are going to change. Some wines are going to be bolder and milder, and we have to appreciate the things that the nature are creating for us in a different way, you know. But I always say to my students, please drink the wines that from the classics, because the classics are going to change, are going to taste it differently. So in this,
Talking of classics, I would like to say that, you know, in my 40 plus years of writing about wine, and even the 20 years of jancisrobinson.com, there has been the most amazing change. I remember in the 90s, everybody making wine in the world, wherever they were, really just wanted to make the same sort of wine. They wanted to make copies of red Bordeaux or white Burgundy. And so they were pulling out all these lovely indigenous grape varieties and planting just a small handful of grapes. And now, of course, it's so different. And in fact, poor old Cabernet Sauvignon is really rather unfashionable. And everybody, unless it's obviously planted on a first growth vineyard or something. And everybody wants it. I won't say consumers are dying for obscure grape varieties, but I think producers are really interested, and wine geeks are as well, but perhaps not the average wine drinker in the street.
yeah, that's true. That's correct. In my opinion, you have to be open to know different kind of grapes and not only the classics, and to be open different styles.
I'll show you now. Here's my third exhibit. Just hold on.
Okay, please.
Luckily, I can reach my bookshelf very easily.
Oh, wow.
Now, again, this is wine grapes, where we profiled every single grape variety we could find that was in commercial circulation. And we found 1,368. That was back in 2011, because the book came out in 2012. And needless to say, the American publisher has put a red jacket on it. So it looks different in America. But now, because of this enormous interest in heritage grape varieties, I think if we were to sit down and write a second edition of the book, which we'd like to do, but of course, the publisher isn't so keen. I think, yeah.
I don't know if you have your books in Spanish, but will be a success if you have it.
Well, the trouble is, this book is so enormous. Actually, it has been translated into Japanese, believe it or not, but it's such a lot of work to translate all these words.
Let me talk with my son. My son is studying as a translator and interpretation. So I will say, you have a very big job, my friend.
But I think the Atlas is available in Spanish, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, the Atlas, yes, is the only one.
Yeah.
Not the Oxford Companion, not even the grapes.
Yeah.
So what about the tasting? Because, you know, in this wine club, I have talking with Pedro Ballesteros that you know. We have people like Tim Atkin that you know, Stephen Spurrier, and all of them have different ways to taste. So when you taste a wine, forget about the grid or the process. So how do you define a quality wine? Just like this, when you take, I have my own opinion, but I want to know yours.
It's I find it so difficult to describe how I taste wine, because I've done it for so long that it's a bit like being asked, how do you breathe? You know, it's just so instinctive.
Okay.
That I find it very difficult to break it down. And when I did my WSET courses, it was before the grid. and we were allowed to taste as we wanted rather than being told how to taste. So I don't even know what the WSET approved method is. But quality, I don't think I've probably got anything very original to say.
Feel it, maybe?
Sorry?
You just feel it.
It's I ought to have one of my wine glasses to hand, but I don't. I look at it, and I don't think the color really tells you very much, does it? And you know, there was a time everybody wanted wines to be very deep colored, and that's gone way out of the window. But this, I nose it, and I probably smell it without swirling first, and see how intense it is, and then I'll swirl it and see what it actually smells of, and do I like it? I don't really mind. I don't really think about, is it typical? Is it, because it's fun if it's not really, as long as it's good. I'm kind of looking for intensity and aromas, various aromas. I'm not a great fan of tasting notes with a long list of different aromas, because I think we all have different sensitivities and we all have different language, as one of the articles on our website pointed out on Wednesday. So, and I honestly don't think people get up in the morning saying, I'm desperate to have a wine tonight that tastes of raspberries, cinnamon bark, and ugly fruit, you know, with a dollop of dried grasses. I'm more interested in my notes on the structure and the components. Is it acid? Is it sweet? Is it tannic? Is it hot? Is it full-bodied? Blah blah. Oh, am I being brought a wine glass? How very kind.
Wonderful.
Hi.
Bravo, senor.
Oh, my husband very kindly brought me the prop. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
My beautiful wine glass, which is I've designed to use for any sort of wine, because I'm not a subscriber to the I've never understood why white wine is served in smaller glasses than red wine, for a start. Anyway, I digress. So I'm looking for harmony. I'm trying not to be too impressed by obviousness. I find quite a lot of wines get better towards the end and maybe a little bit subdued on the nose, but then on the finish they just open out into something very, very beautiful. And often that can be a sign that the wine's going to improve a lot in bottle as well. Obviously, I'm looking for wines that have some beauty on the finish and persist a bit. I'm a bit suspicious of wines. I'm very suspicious of wines that are just very intense at the beginning and then disappear at the end. And I'm sort of looking for what it does on the palate. You know, does it just go joink straight through, or does it spread nicely? But you know, it's not it's very exact science, I'm afraid.
Yeah, but you know, for me, it's like, let me share with you this. It's like when you met someone, and some people get a very big attitude when as soon as you speak with those people, you feel like, wow, a lot of energy. But some people is shy, but it doesn't mean that maybe they just need some time to express themselves better.
Yeah.
But when you criticize at the beginning, sometimes, as you said, it's not the best option. You have to wait. You have to be patient and to know the people in its own way. That's my opinion in the same thing of the.
and wines. It may be wrong, but I do sometimes describe wines like people, because they just seem to have. Sometimes I use the word confident, which probably sounds like wine to jargon or something, but sometimes a wine just is confident, just kind of, you know, knows what it's doing somehow.
Yeah. let's do this. Let's get fun. Okay, I'm drinking this. It's a Pinot Gris from Domaine Cumbrac. It's a
Yes.
rocker. Tell me, if it was a person, how do you describe it? I'm pretty sure that you tried before.
Well, very difficult without tasting it.
But I'm pretty sure that you
And
tried.
I tell you, I find Alsace Pinot Gris quite a puzzle because I can appreciate it. Is it a good one? Is it a bad one? But I do find an awful lot of them very difficult to find the right time to drink them, because some of them are quite rich, aren't they? And almost too rich to drink without food, and sometimes quite high in alcohol. But I see you're managing. And if you're in Alsace, of course, you know, they serve them with a kind of meaty dish and so on. But these sort of medium sweet wines I find quite difficult to find the right drinking occasion. I'm very keen on sweet wines, and I certainly don't object to a Riesling that's got, you know, maybe 10 grams per liter of sugar, residual sugar. But when it gets to like 30, it's quite difficult because it's not really a full-bodied sweet wine. Maybe you can suggest as a somm.
You know, yeah, as a somm and because I really love to meet people from different parts of the world. I think that's one of the reasons that I'm in this business, because I really love to meet people. And Pinot Gris for me, it's like, you know, but very easy guy, you know, always it's in, you know, the heart of the reunions. I mean, the meetings, you know, he's the guy who managed the music, and it's a very easygoing guy. But at the same time, with the age, and especially this kind of wines that it's biodynamic, and it's a little crazy, you know, it's a lot of philosophy on his life and things like that.
Do you think that you can tell a wine has been made from biodynamically grown grapes by the taste?
No, for sure not. Especially, let me tell you a story. When I was there last year in the Domains in Cumbrac, I mean, not this one, but another Pinot Gris was in fermentation for 2 years. I was impressed. Like, really? Are you kidding me? No, I don't believe. No, yes, because the winemaker, I mean, that it's the owner, said that you need to leave the wine like itself.
Somewhere cool, and just go bubbling slowly,
Very slowly, it was very impressed. So tell me about this thing that it's around the wine industry. What about minerality? Many people call it in a different way.
It's so frustrating. It's tantalizing, isn't it? Because I think most of us know. I know that the geologists say, and I absolutely accept that there is no direct correlation between the soil type and the soil somehow getting physically into the grapes. But there does seem to be some correlation between how wines taste and the bedrock. You know, limestone has a certain sort of freshness and granite a certain intensity. And you know, geologists hate it when I say that the wines on Etna have a sort of volcanic warmth, but and a graininess, but they do. But I think you're asking about the general term minerality, and I suppose it's not fruity, and it's not veggie, and it's not animal, and it's sort of something to do with stones and things in that spectrum. You know, that if there's a spectrum, it's that sector.
I know what you mean.
Go on.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, it's hard to explain because when somebody asked me the same thing, you know what I said? It's like the fate. If you believe that exists in this wine and you feel it, it does exist.
I mean, quite a lot of wines, I think, have a certain sort of stony quality to them, you know.
It's like when you're drinking a Riesling from Mosul or a Priorato from Spain.
They have got a special something, haven't they? Yeah.
Yeah, you have it there, but you don't know how to express because for sure, probably we don't know how to. I mean, in terms of taste, we don't know how to express this. Some people call minerality. We can use another word, but I know the meaning, and it's hard. So, and tell me, what about the in a regular day? Do you pair it with wine, or probably it's a common thing in your at home?
Most days, I taste wine sort of late now, really, late afternoon, early evening, and then I will say to Nick, who is our chef, what are we eating tonight?
Okay.
And if there's something that I've tasted that I really like that seems to would go well with it, but often we'll have several bottles on the table and just try the combinations.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid I've always got a wine, well, almost always got a wine, masses of bottles with I just had one little taste out of them. So I'm very popular with my neighbors.
Yeah, I know, I know. So, because for me, the pairing is not only about gastronomy and wine. Usually, yes, because we are sommeliers, we work on the restaurants, we do the pairing and things like that. But nowadays we need to be more like open-minded and to try to find different or create different experience around the wine. So I want to ask you, what's your favorite music?
Oh, impossible to say. I hate it when someone says, "What's your favorite wine?"
Okay, okay, don't.
And even favorite music. I do like Handel.
Okay, okay, got it. Because I want to do like a kind of pairing. I want to play some songs, and you, even if you don't know them, just tell me what kind of wine do you want to match with any kind of wine. You know what I mean? For example, this one. I'm pretty sure that you know that.
She keeps a Moet Chandon in a pretty cabinet with every case, she says, just like Marie
Okay,
Antoinette.
imagine that you are here next to me on the beach. You want to listen this music.
I think I'd want a, a rum cocktail probably rather than the
A
wine.
rocket. Okay, I got it. That's pretty nice. So, okay, don't worry. Oh, this one here. I really like this one. Have you listened to this before?
Not ringing a bell, I'm afraid.
It's a French girl. You know the harmony, the energy that she has. It's enormous. So, which one do you choose to pair with?
Um,
Another rum,
probably.
or maybe tequila?
Maybe a kind of nice, bumptious, round Macon Blanc or something, or a Puy, something
Oh, but wow,
fresh on it. Yeah.
wow, got it, got it. So it's amazing. And how do you know much about Mexican music?
No, I'm sorry. Absolutely not. No.
Because here we have a lot of different singers that are very famous. But one of my, I mean, nowadays, I will play something like very, uh, very. Oh, let me. This we call banda. Its name. It's a lot of people playing in this kind of music. Like 20 people playing this music. It's originally from the north, and when we listen banda, even if you're not in Mexico, many people get crazy because it's
Well,
time for.
that more takes me back to my one and only trip to Mexican wine region, to Baja, and yes, I suppose it would be one of those kind of full
Yeah,
earth reds from there.
good, very good. Thank you, thank you. Um, Well, I'm going to read, just to finish with, some questions from the audience, because we have here some. And Michelle Carlin is asking, what is the region that amazes the most and why?
Wine region that amazes me
Yeah.
most. Well, probably Norway amazes me that they're managing to ripen grapes there.
Yeah.
Admittedly, they're Pinot Noir and they don't ripen every year, and the birds like them a lot too. Yeah, I think amazement, that would qualify. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So, Vale say that you should come to wine region in Ecuador. Wow, I never been in Ecuador, not even in the wine region.
Well, yes, I think if they could send me on a map, go to Jancis, via the contact button on jancisrobinson.com, send me some details of the Ecuadorian wine regions, because we're preparing the next edition of the Oxford Companion to Wine, and we need to make sure that our information about Ecuador is up to date. Maybe with a map as well.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, vale, pues ya sabes, ahí hay que ponerse las pilas. And Martin Bruno is asking, what did you find more exciting about developing regions in your last trip to Argentina?
Oh, well, it's higher and higher, isn't it? And I was only inevitably in Mendoza. One of the best wine trips ever was, and it's many years ago now, was to Colomé up in near Salta, you know, when they were just starting, when Donald Hess had only recently bought it. And I stayed in somewhere near there that was, you know, there was no running hot water. Hot water was made. I heard someone early in the morning and realized they were lighting a fire outside my room to heat the water, you know, and that kind of thing. And of course, the air and the landscape is incredible there. And the fact that he's created this art project there is also incredible.
Yeah, my last trip in Argentina was in 2016, and I was impressed because, as you said, every year they try to create different regions. Like in Patagonia, I'm impressed the work that they are doing in the south of Argentina. It's amazing.
But I suppose what I should say is I absolutely take my hat off to the best Argentine Mendoza winemakers who have transformed have such a range of Malbecs, and it's no longer necessary. They're not all great, big, hefty things. There are some wonderfully fine Malbecs now from some of the cooler vineyards.
Yeah, yeah. So, and Fabiola have a very nice question about what's your opinion about Chinese wines?
I think that they got a lot better. I've been to China quite a few times, and they seem to be on a plateau throughout the first decade of this century, but in the second decade they've got better and better. But there aren't all that many of them. You know, I used to ask someone I respected to put on a tasting of what they thought were the best Chinese wines each time I went. And then I realized actually there weren't that many more. No, there's the expertise is definitely increasing, but very important point to make to a South American audience. They, like many South American wine producers, are using bottles that are ridiculously heavy, and we don't need heavy bottles. Wine's carbon, sorry about this, it's like a stuck record, but wine's carbon footprint, by far the biggest contributor to wine's carbon footprint is the production and transport of bottles. And making heavy bottles is a very selfish thing to do in terms of the planet. And you'll see that, for instance, the Bordeaux First Growths and the Burgundies Grand Crus, they don't use heavy bottles. They, you know, obviously I'm not saying use very, very light bottles, but I see heavy bottles being used for marketing reasons. And there's no excuse for there's no reason to have a heavy bottle. And there's many, many reasons not to have a heavy bottle.
Yeah, I received the last newsletter from jancisrobinson.com. Guys, you should go directly to the sign in, because I read the new newsletter, and she's talking about this project also, carbon footprint, and for sure we need to take care I mean our word, you know.
Yeah, that's true. And we've started now to in our tasting notes, we weigh the bottles, and we write how much each bottle weighs. If they're particularly heavy or they're particularly light, we write down what the weight is, so that people know, you know, who's being good and who's being bad.
Yeah. Roberto Lam is asking, in Jancis' opinion, is better to store the wine with aging potential or drink them as soon as possible? With the pandemic, the future is uncertain. Yeah.
I'm going to be optimistic and hope that it's worth aging. I don't want to drink all of my cellar at once. No, come on, we've got to be optimistic.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, but you know, sometimes, in my opinion, if you feel in the frame that you have to drink any kind of wine, just do it. It doesn't matter.
And it's also, there's nothing sadder than drinking a wine too late. Much better to drink a wine too soon than too late.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, because they think, oh, all wine improves with age, especially in England, they keep wine too long. And they've got special bottles, and they say, what, I'm saving it for a special occasion, but the special occasion never comes. And, you know.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I agree with you. So David is asking, he has always a doubt of who was the one who gave his arm to twist to regain cordially after the famous War of Words, you or Robert Parker?
What's I know what he's talking about. What's the exact question?
Yeah, but who gave his arm? I mean, I think that who was the first?
Who made the peace?
Yes.
Yeah. It was a nice occasion. It was quite a few years after our argument in 2004, and we both happened to be in the same breakfast room in a Bordeaux hotel. And so we kissed and we made up. And Parker said to me, because we had been good friends, I'd had dinner at his house, he'd had dinner at my house. And he said, that Pavy thing, I overreacted. So that was gracious of him.
Yeah, I didn't know. That's a nice story. So tell me about, and he's saying, what's the most rare winemaking that you face? I mean, that you discover in your trips?
What's the rarest wine I have ever had?
Yeah, the winemaking.
Rarest winemaking. Well, nowadays, it's so much experimentation, isn't there? I mean, so many different materials. It's amphorae and metal and glass and all sorts of things. I think the place the place recently where I've seen the greatest number of materials for making wine is in the cellars of Jean-Marc Rouleau in Meursault, because he's doing masses of experiments and he's got so many different casks and containers. Wow. So that'd be interesting. I suppose one of the more exotic wine regions I've been to was in Russia, where they had this huge underground wine museum with just thousands of bottles of very old, very sweet wine, some of which was very bad. But they were making wine in exactly the same way as everybody else makes it. I haven't seen how I know that in Thailand, I've been to India, and that's quite an interesting place because there they can have as many harvests each year as they want. That's all. That's not wine making that's interesting. It's the vine growing. A lot of the tropical viticulture is very different, isn't it?
Very different, yeah, and very difficult as well. Yeah. So, Pilar is saying that what would you recommend young sommeliers in order to sustainability in their professions in the current circumstances?
I know. I feel so sorry for Our son is a restaurateur, actually. He's got 3 restaurants in London. And so I know very, and my husband writes about restaurants. So I'm very, very aware of how awful things are at the moment. And I mean, if you can afford it, just keep tasting and keep tasting in an open-minded, educational way. Try to improve your knowledge of wine. But if you have no income, then that must be very difficult. And I suppose it's a question of don't be too disheartened if you have to take a job that's nothing to do with wine. Just keep the faith and go back when it's possible. People keep saying that when it's all over, the first place people are going to want to go is a restaurant. They're dying to get out of the house. They're dying to see their friends.
Yeah.
And so, you know, let's drink to that.
Yeah, especially in a place like in Mexico or some Latin American places where the tourism is the best industry. But,
Yeah.
yeah, but we need to have faith. I agree with you. I always a man of faith, and I'm really confident that everything is going to be better. So we have here Martin Reyes, that is a master of wine as well. Probably you know him,
Great.
and saying that it's a great to see this conversation. Yeah, I don't know if he's on video. I don't know. I don't know.
Don't worry. Here, yes, but it's just as I see.
Yeah. So Martin,
I'm driving, so I can't be on video. So I'm going to go back on mute and no more camera. Hi, yes, it's good to see you.
Hi, and you.
So he's asking if Luis is coming to Mexico to judge competition, because there's going to be a competition, Concours de Mondial de Bruxelles, and Martin and we will be there judging as well. So
Good.
Maybe we can have the chance to meet her.
I think that Louise is coming for something in Chihuahua.
Yes, it's in the same place.
Yes, good, good, yes.
Yeah. Okay, it's
yes,
interesting.
Well, that's right, because she's judged wine before in various places. So yes, that's it, I think.
Okay, perfect. So we will meet her. And a very good question. Grecia is asking, once I learned, when you were writing the Oxford Companion, you got pregnant. How did you manage it? You have to taste but not drinking. I guess it's challenging to be more a mother in the wine industry. To some advice, because she's a mother as well. So that's why she wants to know that.
You need to be married to a saint, or have a saint as a partner, that's for sure. In fact, I was pregnant when I did my Master of Wine exams. I was expecting the son who is the restaurateur now. So that actually had some advantages in that you do slightly go off wine when you're pregnant. You don't want to drink a lot of it. And so when I was doing the tasting exams, I wasn't, I think sometimes people get confused and worried and nervous and sort of start drinking it, but I certainly wasn't tempted to do that. And also, I think when you're pregnant, your tasting ability is heightened. So that probably helped me do well on the tasting papers, I think. Yeah.
Got it.
But it's very, I mean, I think it would be very difficult to be a sommelier and a mother, I must say. Very.
As you said, it's you better find a sane as a husband, and also, I mean, you have to make an effort. That's the real thing for mothers, not only for writers. Or, I mean, it's like this, no? You have to suffer sometimes in terms of being mother. So,
well, I tell you, I mean, my children always used to see me, the keyboard, as the enemy, and I was just, oh God, just writing again. But our older daughter, she was the most skeptical about my work. But between school and university, she went off to Australia. And one night, she was on a boat off the Whitsunday Islands off Australia. And there were about 12 of them on the boat. They'd all paid for this trip. And they were sitting on the deck one night looking at the stars. The stars are wonderful there. And this Canadian woman started talking to her, talking about wine for some reason. So Julia, our daughter, said, oh, my mother writes about wine. Oh, what's her name? And when Julia told her, this Canadian woman was so thrilled. She went and woke her husband up to tell him. So then, slowly, perhaps, our daughter sort of thought, oh, well, maybe, you know, maybe people respect her work.
Yeah. It's an amazing story. So Mauricio is asking about Mexico. When did you, when you visit Mexico, what do you think is the grape variety with the greatest potential for showing off for the world?
Well, it's probably, I only went to, you know, the one valley, and probably even in the northwest, there are different valleys with different characteristics. And so there probably isn't one grape for the whole of Mexico, because you've got very different wine regions, haven't you?
Yeah. Nowadays we have 14 different states producing wine. Amazing.
A nightmare, I may say, when putting together the World Atlas of Wine, because they're so spread out that the map, you know, it's very difficult to do anything detailed. Well, it's got to be red, I think. It's got to be a dark-skinned grape variety.
Yeah, in my opinion, I always try to tell the people that don't get married with any particular grape. We are just starting. We need to figure out how it's going to work.
Yes, in the old days when New Zealand made such a splash with Sauvignon Blanc and Argentina with Malbec, and it made people think that every country has to have one grape variety. But I don't think that's the case, not in today's world, where we're so blessed with such a wide range of styles and flavors and grapes.
Yeah, got it. You know what? I'm going to have my first wine. I'm not a winemaker, but I'm doing wine with a friend that it's a winemaker. So I will send you a bottle. Its name is Mextli. It's the bottle. It was 18 months on barriques. It's a Tempranillo. And I think that it will be interesting that you tried it.
Okay. All right. Well, I shall look forward to that. As it is, I've got a host of Madirons I've got to taste now. You know, from Southwest France, the Tannat grape. Everyone will know about Tannat in Uruguay, which is so much easier to taste than Tannat from Southwest France, which is very, very tough. But we're going to do that, I'm afraid.
We should go to Uruguay. Anna is saying that there are amazing white wines as well, like Albariños and also
Viognier.
Yeah, Viognier.
Yeah. Anyway, I must go, I'm afraid. And I'm very, very sorry that I was late. I feel really bad about this.
I really, really appreciate your time, Jancis. And for me, it's been a pleasure to be talking with you, knowing each other. I'm really honored to have you here. And for sure, I will have you for the Women and Wine event. and please keep doing your work, because
I love it.
Probably my old sons are going to read your books one day. And that's amazing. So please, just last question, what's the future for Jancis now? Next challenge?
Oh, well, carrying on with, and I would like to say, urge people to visit jancisrobinson.com, because we are mad. We publish 2 articles every day, but about a third of them are free. And there's a lot of free information there. A lot of stuff. The learn section is stuffed with information. And you'll see tomorrow. I've got 2 free articles tomorrow, 1 today, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I'm just, carrying on, really, because I love it. I would like to be able to travel, though. Please, let's all keep our fingers crossed that we can make some progress and find a life that is going to transcend this virus.
Yes, for sure. Let's have faith. That's the most important thing, because nothing lasts forever, not even the virus. So, my friend, I send you a very warm, a big hug
Thank
till
you.
London, and I hope to see you very soon somewhere in the world.
Thank you.
Terry,
Thank you all for attending. Very, very
thank you.
kind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Over
Thank
to
you.
Madeline.
Thank you very much.